Chapter 26, Dead Men Don't Pay. Daryl Night Owl Baca was a Mexican Mafia member who had nothing but holes in his tennis shoes and $60 on his books when he became Boxer's cellmate at Pelican Bay in 1995. Enriquez told him there's a whole world of money out there. The two of them had known each other for years. Baca was a year older, a quiet kid who used to get high in Pat Nixon Park and occasionally went to Enriquez's house in Cerritos to score drugs. They were homeboys from Artesia 13. Night Owl lived in nearby Lakewood, who often ran into each other at parties while growing up. Night Owl was a closed-off kind of guy who was incapable of showing emotion, never knew the identity of his own father, and was physically abused by stepfathers and boyfriends of a promiscuous mother who eventually died of AIDS. Daryl lived in apartments, never had a real home, and sometimes had to eat dog biscuits because of the lack of food. He had no chance from day one, bemoaned Boxer, and he had serious trust issues. The two gangsters became better friends when they were locked up in the county jail together in the early 1980s. Once, during a disagreement with some paisas over a pair of stolen shoes, Enriquez was outnumbered 5-1. Daryl came to his aid, gripped his fingers around the neck of one of the adversaries, and lifted him off the ground with one hand. That quickly ended the conflict and cemented a friendship between the two Artesia homeboys. Boxer was waiting to be sent upstate on his robbery convictions, and Night Owl was facing a murder rap. He had owned and cherished a 1960 Chevrolet Impala lowrider automobile for which he had paid a mere $600. A rival gangster made the errant decision to shoot at it. A furious Baca gunned down the offender and killed him. He was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison at the age of 19. In fact, it was Night Owl who asked Boxer to do his first hit for the Mafia at DVI in 1984. Baca was a bolting workout machine who stood 6 feet, 2 inches tall, and had a body frame packed with 190 pounds of muscle. There was also a quiet dignity about him, and in the MA lineup, steeped in dirty politics, he was squeaky clean. I made the mistake, said Enriquez, of cutting him in on my business. Boxer felt that he always carried Baca, collecting tax money for him and taking care of his beefs on the street. He cited the Mousey Reyes murder as a perfect example. Michael Reyes, aka Mousey of Artesia 13, was a likable little guy who grew up with Baca in Lakewood. They served time together in juvenile hall and county jail. With a boyish face that had the features of a mouse set on top of a tiny body that stood barely 5 feet tall, Mousey had an especially fitting nickname. He was also a crackhead who dealt nickel and dime drug deals as part of Night Owl's crew. He carried a letter from Baca that gave him enough strength to deal on the streets, and he always believed Night Owl had his back. That is, until he ended up dead on September 23, 1998. Mousey and his Chola girlfriend drove to a Norwalk house to buy some drugs. There was an argument, and Mousey was stabbed multiple times as he fell to his death on the driveway. Witnesses identified the assailant as Daniel Poncho Arredondo of Norwalk 13. Enriquez claimed that the hit was actually ordered from a federal prison by Mexican Mafia member Ralph Perico Rocha, who felt that Mousey was encroaching on his Norwalk drug territory. Baca was indignant that he lost an old friend and a steady earner. More important, his Mafia pride was hurt. Yet he went to Enriquez and asked him to take care of it. Boxer did. He sent word to his crew boss through a visit to Pelican Bay by Cynthia Alvarado that Mousey's death had to be avenged. The green light was on. On January 4, 1999, hitman Poncho Arredondo, a 38-year-old tax collector from mafioso Perico, was standing in front of a heroin dealer's house in Norwalk when a car drove up. A rival gang member popped out of the passenger door, walked up to Poncho, exchanged some harsh words, then pulled out a handgun and struck him in the face. Poncho turned and ran, but couldn't outdistance a series of 9mm slugs fired into his lower back and thighs. The getaway car took off without the assassin, who managed to escape on foot and hijacked another car to flee the neighborhood. By the time the ambulance pulled into St. Francis Medical Center in Linwood, Poncho was no longer a Mafia tax collector or a hitman. He was just plain dead. Afterward, Laemis Perico sent word to Enriquez that the two factions needed to resolve their dispute before this turf war escalated. A deal was made that an Enriquez Boxer crew could absorb part of the Norwalk territory. so Toker was allowed to make more money there in the future without being harassed by Perico's people. Gonzalo Sinbad Navarro, the Norwalk 13 gang member who had successfully followed Mafia orders to kill Poncho Arredondo, was eventually arrested and convicted for the murder. He was fingered by witnesses at the scene and by a number of anonymous callers. Sinbad was 30 years old, who would spend the rest of his life in prison for murdering a murderer who offended another murderer, Daryl Night Owl Baca. It was all part of twisted, deadly mafia business. Boxer was increasingly annoyed by Baca. He saw him more and more as a stingy, miserly person and a notorious bean counter. Once, Night Owl wanted to file an inmate grievance because he knew he had 76 cents left on his prison canteen books and the clerk wiped it off his account. He was furious over a lousy 76 pennies. At the same time, Boxer complained, I had to collect his tax money from the street. I was carrying them. He never made money on his own and became upset if he was shorted a mere 25 bucks. After a couple years, Boxer told him, we can't do business together anymore. I'm done. A correctional officer heard the noise coming from Epod shortly after noon and sent another guard to check it out. He found Night Owl Baca and Enriquez standing in cell 217, bruised and breathless. The inmates told the guard that everything was okay and they were just playing around. In fact, they weren't. As soon as the officer left, the inmates started throwing punches again. One caught Boxer on the nose and he was covered with blood. The guard sounded an alarm. A crime incident report filed November 3, 1997 by Pelican Bay State Prison correctional officers indicates that the cellmates kept fighting until pepper spray, also known as OC, Old Rescue Capsicum spray, was used to break them up. OC is a chemical compound that causes pain and irritation to the eyes, even inducing temporary blindness. Boxer explained, it had been building. I took care of him and he loved it. When I told him the meal ticket was over, he didn't like it. Neither of them took the issue to other carnales. Unauthorized fighting with another carnal was one of the great rules that could be punishable by death. They patched up their differences and even started doing business again. Then Phoebe Carranza entered the picture. Baca's first wife was a gorgeous Mexican brunette with a voluptuous body to match. Her nickname was Hot Puss, and one day she just took off, knowing Night Owl would never hoot again outside prison walls. That wasn't a problem for Phoebe. She was what is known in prison as a window hopper, someone who visits different inmates looking to hook up with one of them. Baca had met her while she was visiting a camarada from the avenues known as Demon. I knew there was big trouble coming from this chick, recalled Boxer, a fat loudmouth cow who had an obese lust for power. Phoebe Carranza arranged a quick jailhouse marriage that made her, Phoebe Baca, a Mexican mafia wife. After Baca hooked up with her, he tried to micromanage everything. Boxer felt that Phoebe asked too many questions of other crew members, and he didn't like it. He didn't like her. Then Cynthia, crew boss Toker's wife, whose code name was Hottie, visited Enriquez at Pelican Bay and told him they didn't want to pay Baca anymore. He was supposed to receive about $100 a month from Toker and Hottie's end of the business, but they were about $900 behind in payments. Toker and his wife never did like paying both Boxer Enriquez and Baca. I'm going to kill her, threatened Baca. Leave her alone, argued Enriquez. Anyone who tries to kill her will get shot. Then you're choosing her over me, said Baca, following up with a torrent of curses. First of all, Boxer knew dead men don't pay. He felt that it made no sense to kill Cynthia. She was a better business person than her husband. I didn't think she had a killing coming. She was cool people, a good person, loyal to me. Plus, Cynthia was a major conduit between Boxer and his crews. She visited Pelican Bay a dozen times from 1999 to 2002. It was bad business to do away with her. It was time to sever all ties with Night Owl. Boxer paid him $3,000 and 3 ounces of methamphetamine for Cynthia's life, making good on her delinquent payments. Baca took the Caballo crew and Flo, along with their ties to the Bueno family. It wasn't over. The bad blood between Boxer and Night Owl was boiling. Enriquez fashioned the deadly metal shank out of a knee brace he was authorized to wear. The weapon was 7 inches long and 2.5 inches wide. He planned to kill Baca when he got a chance. Baca planned on killing him.